The sound of skin slapping against skin echoed through the marble hallway of the Johannesburg mansion as 28-year-old Kwame Asante froze outside his bedroom door. Through the crack, he could see his wife of 3 years, Thandiwe, arched over their king-sized bed with a man he'd never seen before, a man whose expensive watch glinted in the afternoon sunlight streaming through their floor-to-ceiling windows. What would you do if you walked in on this? Hit like if you've been betrayed, and comment below where you're watching from. Yes, harder. Thandiwe's voice cut through Kwame's chest like a blade. This was the same woman who had claimed headaches for the past 6 months, the same woman who now writhed in pleasure with a complete stranger in their matrimonial bed. Kwame's hands trembled as he gripped his car keys. His father, Chief Emmanuel Asante, had built an empire spanning from Lagos to Johannesburg, oil, real estate, technology. Kwame had inherited not just billions, but the family's reputation for being untouchable. Yet here he stood, completely destroyed by domestic betrayal. The stranger's voice was deep, commanding. "Your husband will never find out, will he?" "Never," Thandiwe gasped. "He's too busy counting his father's money to notice what I do." Kwame's jaw clenched. He'd given Thandiwe everything. A penthouse in Sandton, designer clothes, luxury cars, even funding for her boutique in Rosebank. Their wedding had been the social event of the year, featured in every magazine from South Africa to Nigeria. Now, watching his marriage crumble in real time, he understood why his grandmother had always warned him about women who loved money more than the man. He pulled out his phone and started recording. In business, his father had taught him that evidence was power. In marriage, apparently, it was survival. The man's face came into view as they shifted positions. Smooth dark skin, expensive suit jacket thrown carelessly on the Persian rug, a gold chain that looked custom-made. Kwame didn't recognize him, but he had the bearing of someone with serious money, someone from their social circle. "When will you leave him?" the stranger asked, running his hands through Thandiwe's natural hair that she always complained about maintaining. "Soon," she whispered. "Once I get pregnant, he'll have to give me half of everything in the divorce. His father's conservative. He'll pressure Kwame to maintain the family image." Kwame's blood turned to ice. Pregnant? They'd been trying for a baby for months. She'd been taking fertility vitamins, timing ovulation, making him feel guilty for traveling so much for business. Now, he realized it was all manipulation. She was planning to trap him with another man's child. The bedroom door suddenly creaked. Kwame held his breath, but neither of them noticed. They were too lost in their betrayal to hear anything beyond their own heavy breathing. His phone buzzed with a text from his assistant. "Sir, the new maid started today. Amara Okafor from Lagos. She's waiting downstairs for orientation." A maid. Kwame had been rejecting household staff for months because Thandiwe claimed they made her uncomfortable. She wanted to hire her own people, she'd said. People she could trust. Now he understood why. She needed accomplices for her cheating spouse's behavior, not witnesses. Kwame backed away from the door and headed downstairs, his mind racing. His father had always said that a man's greatest weapon wasn't money or power, it was information. And now Kwame had information that could destroy Thandiwe's entire plan. In the foyer, he found a woman in her mid-20s arranging cleaning supplies. She had the kind of natural beauty that didn't need makeup. Smooth dark skin, intelligent eyes, and an aura of quiet dignity that reminded him of his mother. "Mr. Asante?" she asked softly, her Nigerian accent musical. "I'm Amara Okafor. I'm honored to work for your family." Something about her voice was soothing after the chaos upstairs. "Welcome to our home, Amara," he managed, though his voice cracked slightly. She studied his face with concern. "Are you all right, sir?" Before he could answer, footsteps thundered down the stairs. Thandiwe appeared, hair hastily tied back, wearing a silk robe. Her eyes narrowed when she saw Amara. "Who is this?" Thandiwe's tone was sharp, territorial. "The new maid," Kwame replied, watching his wife's reaction carefully. "Amara Okafor." Thandiwe's expression shifted to something calculating. "I thought we agreed I would choose our household staff." "You've rejected every candidate for 8 months," Kwame said, his voice gaining strength. "Amara comes highly recommended from the Adebayo family in Lagos." The lie rolled off his tongue easily. He'd actually found Amara through a reputable agency, but mentioning the wealthy Adebayo name would make Thandiwe think twice about dismissing her immediately. Thandiwe forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Of course. Welcome, Amara. I hope you understand that loyalty is everything in this household." Amara nodded respectfully. "Yes, madam. Discretion and loyalty." As Thandiwe headed back upstairs, probably to warn her lover, Kwame made a decision that would change everything. He needed someone in this house who wasn't under his wife's influence. Someone who might help him uncover the full extent of his wife's betrayal. But what Kwame didn't know was that Amara Okafor had her own shocking secrets. Secrets that would soon turn his world upside down in ways he never imagined. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more gripping stories like this. What do you think happens next? Comment below. 2 weeks passed like a dance of deception in the Asante mansion. Kwame watched from his study as Amara moved through the house with quiet efficiency, cleaning rooms that hadn't seen proper attention in months. Unlike the previous maids Thandiwe had dismissed, Amara seemed to blend into the background. Exactly what he needed. Thandiwe had grown increasingly nervous around the new maid, often finding excuses to follow her around or assign her tasks that kept her on the ground floor. But Amara was smart. She seemed to sense the undercurrent of tension without asking questions. On this particular Tuesday evening, Kwame sat in his study reviewing financial reports when he heard Thandiwe's voice in the hallway, speaking in hushed tones on her phone. "No, we have to be more careful now," she whispered. "There's this new maid, and something about her feels off. Like she's watching everything." Kwame leaned closer to the door. Thandiwe was speaking in a mix of English and Zulu, probably thinking no one would understand the full conversation. "I don't care about your concerns, Sipho," she continued, switching to full Zulu. "We stick to the plan. Once I'm pregnant, we take half his money and disappear to Cape Town. Your construction business will finally have the capital it needs." Sipho. So the stranger had a name and apparently a business that needed funding. Kwame's mind raced as pieces fell into place. This wasn't just infidelity. It was a calculated financial scheme. "Mrs. Asante?" Amara's voice interrupted from the foyer. "Should I prepare dinner for 3 again tonight?" Kwame frowned. 3? He'd been eating alone most evenings, assuming Thandiwe was visiting friends or working late at her boutique. "No." Thandiwe's voice was sharp. "Just for Mr. Asante and myself." But Kwame had already started moving. He slipped out of his study and up the back stairs, the ones the staff used. His father's mansion had been designed with multiple access points, a paranoid rich man's dream. From the upstairs landing, he could see into the living room where Thandiwe was pacing, still on her phone. "I said it's too risky now," she hissed. "That maid is always cleaning something, always around. Wait until next week, when Kwame travels to Lagos for the oil refinery meeting." Kwame's business trip. She knew his exact schedule, had even helped him pack his bags while playing the supportive wife. Now he realized she was counting down the days until she had the house to herself again. A soft knock on his study door interrupted his thoughts. "Sir." Amara's voice was barely above a whisper. Kwame hurried back downstairs and opened the door. Amara stood there with a tea service, but her expression was troubled. "I apologize for disturbing you," she began carefully, "but I wanted to ask about the house rules regarding visitors." His pulse quickened. "What kind of visitors?" Amara set down the tea tray, her movements precise. "This afternoon, while cleaning the master bedroom, I found a man's watch under the bed. Not yours. I've seen the ones you wear. This one had initials. SM. Kwame's heart pounded. SM, Sipho something. Where is it now?" "I left it on the nightstand," Amara said quietly. "But Mrs. Asante saw me placing it there. She told me it belonged to her brother who visited last week." "My wife doesn't have a brother," Kwame said, the words falling like stones. Amara's eyes widened slightly, but she maintained her composure. "I see." For a moment, they stood in silence. Then Kwame made another decision that surprised even him. "Amara, I need to ask you something important. Can I trust you to be completely honest with me?" She nodded without hesitation. "Yes, sir." "Have you noticed anything unusual about my wife's behavior? Any patterns when I'm away?" Amara hesitated, clearly wrestling with the implications of her answer. Finally, she spoke. "Every Monday and Thursday afternoon, a man arrives shortly after you leave for work. He parks around the corner and enters through the garden gate. They spend several hours together upstairs." The confirmation hit Kwame like a physical blow, even though he'd already known the truth. Hearing it stated so plainly made the emotional manipulation real. "How long have you known?" he asked. "Since my second day," she admitted. "But it's not my place to interfere in family matters." Kwame studied this woman who had become an unexpected ally in his own home. "What would you do if you were in my position?" Amara's answer surprised him with its directness. "I would gather evidence, protect my assets, and make sure the person who betrayed me understood the consequences of their choices." There was something in her voice, a hardness that suggested she spoke from experience. But before Kwame could probe further, Thandiwe's heels clicked across the foyer. "Kwame, who are you talking to?" his wife called out. "Just giving Amara some instructions for tomorrow," he replied smoothly. Thandiwe appeared in the doorway, her smile plastic. "Amara, didn't I tell you to finish the laundry before bothering Mr. Asante?" "Yes, madam. I was just bringing tea as requested." "Well, next time, just leave it and go. My husband doesn't need to be disturbed by household staff." The dismissal was clear, but Kwame noticed something else. Fear flickered in Thandiwe's eyes as she looked at Amara. His wife was definitely worried about what the maid might have seen or heard. After Amara left, Thandiwe slipped her arms around Kwame's waist. "Darling, I've been thinking. Maybe we should consider finding a different maid. Someone older, more traditional." "Why?" Kwame asked, though he already knew the answer. "She's too young, too pretty. You know how people talk." Thandiwe's fingers traced patterns on his chest. "Besides, I want to start fresh as we begin trying for a baby." The baby lie again. Kwame felt sick, but forced himself to play along. "Of course, my love. Whatever makes you comfortable." That night, as Thandiwe slept beside him, Kwame stared at the ceiling and planned his next move. He would let her think she was in control while he built his case. But first, he needed to understand why Amara had been so quick to help him, and why her eyes had held such knowing pain when she spoke about betrayal. What he didn't realize was that Amara Okafor had her own reasons for being in his house. Reasons that had nothing to do with cleaning and everything to do with a devastating secret that would soon explode both their worlds. What shocking truth is Amara hiding? Don't forget to like and subscribe for the next chapter. The Lagos traffic was murderous as Kwame's driver navigated toward his father's compound in Victoria Island. Chief Emmanuel Asante had summoned his son for their monthly business review, but today Kwame had a different agenda entirely. His father's study was a shrine to African success. Hand-carved masks from Ghana, certificates from international oil conferences, and photographs with presidents and business moguls across the continent. Chief Asante sat behind his mahogany desk, still imposing at 72, his agbada crisp despite the humid Lagos heat. "You look troubled, my son," Chief Asante observed, setting aside his reading glasses. "The Johannesburg operations are profitable. The new refinery project is ahead of schedule. What weighs on your mind?" Kwame had practiced this conversation during the 4-hour flight from Johannesburg. "Papa, I need advice about Thandiwe." His father's expression grew serious. "Marriage troubles? Your grandmother always said that woman had hungry eyes." "She's been cheating on me," Kwame said simply, "with a man named Sipho. They're planning to steal half my wealth through a fake pregnancy and divorce." Chief Asante's fingers drummed against the desk, a sign Kwame recognized as barely controlled rage. In their family, betrayal was the ultimate sin, worse than business failure or public embarrassment. "Evidence?" his father asked. Kwame pulled out his phone and showed the recorded video, along with photos of the man's watch and a detailed timeline Amara had helped him compile. "She's been planning this for months, maybe longer." "This Sipho," Chief Asante said after reviewing everything. "His full name. I'm still investigating. But Papa, there's something else. The new maid, Amara Okafor. She's been helping me gather information. There's something about her background I can't figure out." Chief Asane's eyebrows raised. "Okafor? From which state in Nigeria?" "Lagos," she said, "but she speaks like someone educated abroad. Her English is too refined for most domestic workers." "Bring her file." Kwame hesitated. "I don't have access to it. Thandiwe handles all household staff documentation." "Of course she does." Chief Asante reached for his phone. "I'll make some calls. If this woman is in your house during such a delicate time, we need to know exactly who she is." While his father spoke rapidly in Igbo to someone on the phone, Kwame's mind wandered back to the previous evening. He had found Amara in the kitchen preparing a traditional Nigerian soup, egusi with perfectly balanced spices that reminded him of his childhood. When he'd complimented her cooking, she'd smiled and mentioned learning from her grandmother in Ikoyi. Ikoyi was one of Lagos's most expensive neighborhoods, not where domestic workers typically grew up. "Interesting," Chief Asante said, ending his call. "My security contact ran a background check. Amara Okafor exists, but her history is complicated." "What do you mean?" "She graduated from the University of Cape Town with a business degree 3 years ago. Before that, she attended an expensive private school in Lagos. Her father was Dr. Chinedu Okafor." Kwame's blood went cold. He died in a car accident 2 years ago. But here's what's interesting. Dr. Okafor was your wife's gynecologist. He treated Thandiwe for fertility issues when you first got married. The pieces started forming a picture that made Kwame's stomach churn. "You think Amara knows something about Thandiwe's medical history?" "I think Amara Okafor has been in your house for a very specific reason, and it has nothing to do with cleaning," Chief Asante said grimly. "The question is whether she's helping you or manipulating you." Kwame's phone buzzed with a message from Amara. "Sir, Mrs. Asante has invited her brother for dinner tonight. She asked me to prepare the guest room. Thought you should know." "She's helping me," Kwame said, showing his father the text. "But why would a university graduate work as a maid?" Chief Asante's expression darkened. "In my experience, when an educated woman takes a position beneath her qualifications, she's either desperate or seeking revenge. Given her father's connection to your wife, I suspect it's the latter." "Revenge for what?" "That's what you need to find out. Tonight." The flight back to Johannesburg felt endless. Kwame's mind raced through possibilities, each more disturbing than the last. If Amara knew something damaging about Thandiwe, Why hadn't she revealed it immediately? What was she waiting for? By the time he reached home, darkness had settled over Santon like a heavy blanket. The mansion's windows glowed warmly, giving the illusion of domestic bliss. But Kwame now knew that appearances in his world meant nothing. He parked quietly and entered through the side entrance, the one that led directly to his study. The sound of laughter echoed from the dining room. Thandiwe's melodic giggle mixed with a deep male voice. The same voice from the bedroom recording. Kwame found Amara in the kitchen, washing dishes with mechanical precision. Her shoulders were tense. "How was your trip, sir?" she asked without turning around. "Educational," he replied carefully. "I learned some interesting things about your background." Amara. Her hands stilled in the soapy water. Slowly, she turned to face him. The mask of subservient domesticity had fallen away, replaced by something far more complex. "Dr. Chinedu Okafor was your father," Kwame continued. "You're not really a maid." Amara dried her hands with deliberate slowness. When she finally spoke, her voice held a coldness that hadn't been there before. "No, Mr. Asante, I'm not really a maid. I'm a woman seeking justice for what your wife did to my family." The dining room erupted in laughter again, but now it sounded sinister to Kwame's ears. He was trapped between two women with hidden agendas, and he was beginning to realize that his cheating spouse's troubles were just the beginning. The silence in the kitchen stretched between them like a taut wire. Amara's confession hung in the air, while Thandiwe's laughter continued to drift in from the dining room, where she was entertaining her lover under the pretense of a family dinner. "What did my wife do to your family?" Kwame asked, though part of him dreaded the answer. Amara leaned against the marble counter, her composed mask finally cracking. "My father treated your wife for fertility issues 2 years ago. When his treatments weren't working fast enough for her, she accused him of medical malpractice. She claimed he had given her experimental drugs that damaged her reproductive system." Kwame felt the floor shift beneath him. What happened? She sued him for millions. The case made headlines across Nigeria and South Africa. Billionaire's wife destroyed by incompetent doctor. Amara's voice was steady, but pain flickered in her eyes. "My father's reputation was ruined overnight. Patients canceled appointments. Other doctors refused to work with him. The medical board launched an investigation. The car accident. He was driving to a lawyer's office to review new evidence that would clear his name. Evidence that proved Thandiwe had been taking fertility drugs from multiple doctors without telling any of them. A dangerous combination that caused her own medical problems." Amara's hands clenched into fists. He never made it to that appointment. Someone ran him off the road on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. The implication hit Kwame like ice water. "You think it wasn't an accident?" "I know it wasn't, but I couldn't prove it. Your wife's legal team made sure the investigation was superficial. Case closed, widow compensated, doctor blamed posthumously." From the dining room came the sound of chairs scraping and Thandiwe's voice. "Let me show you the art collection upstairs, Sipho." Kwame grabbed Amara's arm gently. "Hide. Now." She slipped into the pantry just as Thandiwe and her lover entered the kitchen. Sipho was even more handsome up close. Tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of confident swagger that came from a lifetime of getting what he wanted. His expensive cologne filled the space. "Your husband has good taste in wine," Sipho said, examining a bottle of vintage South African red. "Kwame has good taste in everything," Thandiwe replied with mock affection. "Too bad he's so boring in bed." They laughed together, and Kwame fought the urge to confront them immediately. Instead, he retreated to his study and pulled up everything he could find about Sipho Mthembu. It took only minutes to identify him through social media and business registrations. Sipho Mthembu, 35, owned a struggling construction company in Cape Town. His business was hemorrhaging money, behind on multiple projects, and facing bankruptcy within 6 months. His ex-wife had divorced him 2 years ago, citing gambling debts and emotional manipulation. The man was a professional predator, and Thandiwe was his latest target. Except she thought she was playing him. A soft knock interrupted his research. Amara peered in, her expression urgent. "They've gone upstairs," she whispered. "But I heard something else while they were in the kitchen." Sipho mentioned meeting with someone called the lawyer tomorrow morning. They're planning to accelerate their timeline. "Why are you helping me?" Kwame asked suddenly. "You could have just exposed Thandiwe publicly and ruined her. Why work as a maid? Why get involved with me?" Amara's smile was razor-sharp. "Because destroying her reputation isn't enough. She needs to lose everything the same way she destroyed my family. Her money, her social standing, her freedom. And what do you want from me?" "Your wife committed fraud in her malpractice case. She falsified medical records and bribed witnesses. I have some evidence, but I need access to her personal documents to complete the proof. Things that only a husband would have legal access to." Kwame realized he was being played from multiple angles. His wife wanted his money, her lover wanted her to fund his business, and now Amara wanted to use him for revenge. Yet somehow, Amara's manipulation felt like justice rather than betrayal. "What kind of evidence do you already have?" he asked. Amara pulled out a tablet from her cleaning supply bag. "My father documented everything. Photos of the real medical reports, recordings of phone calls with other doctors who treated your wife, financial records showing payments to witnesses who later recanted their testimony." The tablet displayed meticulously organized files, a digital arsenal that could destroy Thandiwe's entire fraud case. But there were gaps in the evidence, missing pieces that would be needed for criminal prosecution. "I need 3 things," Amara continued. "Thandiwe's personal laptop, her medical files from the bedroom safe, and access to her bank records showing payments to false witnesses. The safe is biometric. Only she can open it." "Actually," Amara smiled, "your wife has been opening that safe twice a week since I arrived. Always when you're in meetings. I know the location and have been studying her hand movements." Kwame stared at this woman who had infiltrated his life with the precision of a military operation. She wasn't just seeking revenge. She was executing it with surgical skill. Upstairs, a door slammed, followed by raised voices. Then Thandiwe screamed, "You said you would leave your wife for me." "When?" Sipho's response was muffled, but his tone was clearly argumentative. The sound of something glass breaking echoed through the house. Amara and Kwame looked at each other. Their enemies were starting to turn on themselves, but that might make them more dangerous, not less. "There's something else you should know," Amara whispered urgently. "Thandiwe isn't just planning to fake a pregnancy. She's been injecting herself with hormone treatments that would show up positive on pregnancy tests. She's going to claim miscarriage after the divorce papers are filed." The footsteps overhead grew heavier, more agitated. Whatever was happening upstairs was escalating quickly. Then Sipho's voice boomed through the house. "You never told me your husband's family was connected to the Okafor case. Do you have any idea what you've done?" Amara's face went white. Kwame's pulse raced. Somehow, Sipho had made the connection between Amara's real identity and Dr. Okafor's death, which meant their entire plan had just become exponentially more dangerous. The argument upstairs had gone silent, which was somehow more terrifying than the shouting. Kwame motioned for Amara to stay hidden while he crept toward the staircase. The marble steps felt cold through his socks as he climbed toward whatever confrontation awaited. He found Thandiwe and Sipho in the master bedroom, their voices now hushed, but their body language screaming tension. Sipho held his phone, scrolling through what looked like news articles. "Listen to me carefully," Sipho was saying. Dr. Chinedu Okafor had a daughter, Amara Okafor, and according to this obituary, she swore at his funeral to make his killers pay. Thandiwe's face had gone ashen. "That's impossible. Amara is just a maid from Lagos. I vetted her myself, through the agency." "Then explain this." Sipho thrust his phone toward her. "Amara Okafor, 26, graduate of University of Cape Town, daughter of the late Dr. Chinedu Okafor. Look at the photo from his funeral." Kwame couldn't see the screen from his hiding spot, but he watched his wife's expression crumble as recognition set in. "She's been in our house for 3 weeks," Thandiwe whispered. "She could have poisoned us, planted evidence, recorded everything. Or worse," Sipho said grimly, "if she connects your medical fraud to her father's death, we're both facing criminal charges, murder charges, if she can prove the accident wasn't accidental." Kwame's mind reeled. These people had actually killed Amara's father to cover up medical fraud. The domestic betrayal he'd discovered was nothing compared to this revelation. "We have to get rid of her. Tonight," Thandiwe said, her voice taking on a hardness Kwame had never heard before. "Make it look like an accident." "And the husband?" "Kwame doesn't know anything. He's too trusting, too naive. Once Amara is gone, we continue with the original plan." Sipho moved to the window, looking down at the garden. "Where is she now?" "Kitchen, probably. She's always cleaning something." Thandiwe began pacing. "We could say she fell down the stairs, or slipped in the bathroom. The marble is slippery when wet." Kwame had heard enough. These people weren't just planning financial fraud. They were planning murder. He needed to warn Amara immediately. He crept back downstairs, his heart hammering. But the kitchen was empty. Amara's cleaning supplies were there, her tablet hidden behind the flour containers, but she was gone. A scream pierced the night air, coming from the garden. Kwame rushed outside to find Amara on the ground beside the pool, her head bleeding, Sipho standing over her with a heavy garden statue in his hands. "It was self-defense," Sipho called out as Kwame approached. "She attacked me with a knife." But there was no knife anywhere, and Amara was unconscious, clearly the victim of an assault. Thandiwe appeared behind Sipho, her face a mask of false concern. "Oh my God, what happened?" she exclaimed, her acting almost convincing. "Should we call an ambulance?" "No," Sipho said quickly. "She's probably fine. Just a bump on the head. We don't want unnecessary attention." Kwame knelt beside Amara, checking her pulse. It was steady but weak. "She needs a hospital. Now." "Darling, maybe Sipho is right," Thandiwe said, her hand on Kwame's shoulder. "You know how these domestic staff can be dramatic. She probably just slipped." The callousness in his wife's voice made something snap inside Kwame. This was the woman he'd shared a bed with for 3 years, the woman he'd trusted with his heart and his family's reputation. Now she was casually suggesting they let an innocent person die to protect their conspiracy. "I'm calling an ambulance," Kwame said firmly, pulling out his phone. Sipho moved closer, still holding the statue. "I don't think that's a good idea, brother." "I'm not your brother," Kwame replied, standing to face the man who'd been sleeping with his wife and apparently committing murder to cover it up. "And you're going to put that statue down and walk away from my property." "Actually," Thandiwe said, her voice now completely devoid of warmth, "Sipho isn't going anywhere, and neither are you." Kwame turned to see his wife holding something that made his blood freeze, a small silver pistol pointed directly at his chest. Where had she gotten a gun? "Thandiwe, what are you doing?" "What I should have done months ago," she replied. "You see, my love, the plan has changed. We're not waiting for divorce proceedings or fake pregnancies. You're going to have a tragic accident tonight, right here, beside your brave maid who tried to save you." Amara stirred on the ground, her eyes fluttering open. When she saw the scene above her, she froze. 2 accidents in one night, Sipho added with a cruel smile. The grieving widow will inherit everything and leave South Africa forever with her new husband. You're insane, Kwame said, backing toward the pool. My father will know. The security cameras. Already disabled, Thandiwe said. Sipho has been planning this for weeks. Every detail. Amara slowly sat up, her hand pressed to her bleeding head. Her voice was weak, but determined. Actually, Mrs. Asante, you've made one crucial mistake. What mistake? Thandiwe snapped. The cameras aren't the only things recording tonight, Amara said, pulling something from her pocket. A small device with a blinking red light. This conversation has been live-streamed to 3 different locations. Sipho lunged toward her, but Amara was faster than her injuries suggested. She rolled away and pressed a button on the device. Suddenly, the mansion's security lights blazed to life, and the sound of approaching sirens filled the air. You see, Amara said, struggling to her feet, I've been recording everything since my first day here. Every conversation, every meeting, every plan. And tonight, I made sure the authorities would witness your confession to murdering my father. Thandiwe's gun wavered in her shaking hands. You're bluffing. Am I? Amara smiled through the blood trickling down her face. Check your phones. By now, this video has been sent to the South African Police Service, the Nigerian police force, and several investigative journalists who've been following your fraud case. The sirens were getting closer. Kwame could see the flashing lights reflecting off the mansion's windows. But Thandiwe's finger was still on the trigger, and desperation made people unpredictable. In the next few seconds, someone in this garden was going to die. The question was who. The first police vehicle screeched into the driveway, just as Thandiwe's finger tightened on the trigger. The distraction cost her the advantage. Amara dove to the left, while Kwame lunged forward, tackling his wife around the waist. The gun fired into the night sky as all 3 of them crashed to the ground beside the pool. Sipho made a run for the garden gate, but the wailing sirens had multiplied. Blue and red lights strobed across the mansion's facade as police vehicles surrounded the property. Everyone freeze. Hands where we can see them. Detective Namsa Dlamini's voice cut through the chaos with the authority of someone who'd seen it all during her 15 years with the South African Police Service. She approached with her weapon drawn, her team flanking her from multiple angles. Kwame slowly raised his hands, still straddling his wife, who was cursing in 3 languages. Detective, I'm Kwame Asante. This is my property. That man, he pointed toward Sipho, who was being tackled by 2 officers near the gate, assaulted my employee and threatened to kill me. Detective Dlamini's eyes moved to Amara, who was sitting against a garden wall, blood still trickling from her head wound. Miss, are you injured? Do you need medical attention? I'll survive, Amara said, holding up the recording device. But I have evidence of conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, and the confession to Dr. Chinedu Okafor's death 2 years ago. Thandiwe's struggle against Kwame intensified. She's lying. She's a criminal who broke into our house. She tried to blackmail us. With what? Detective Dlamini asked calmly, her weapon still trained on the group. Amara smiled despite her injury. With proof that Mrs. Asante falsified medical records, bribed witnesses, and had my father killed when he discovered evidence that could expose her fraud. That's preposterous. Thandiwe shrieked. This woman is mentally unstable. She's obsessed with a medical malpractice case that was settled legally. Detective Dlamini nodded to her team. Within minutes, Sipho was handcuffed, and Thandiwe was being read her rights. Kwame found himself sitting in his own garden, watching his marriage officially end in the back of a police van. Mr. Asante, Detective Dlamini said, approaching him with a notepad. "We're going to need your full cooperation. This case involves multiple jurisdictions and some very serious allegations." "Whatever you need," Kwame replied, then looked at Amara, who was being treated by paramedics. "But I want to make something clear. That woman saved my life tonight. Without her, you would have found 3 bodies in this garden." The detective followed his gaze. "Amara Okafor has been working with our cold case unit for 6 months. Her father's accident was reopened when she provided new evidence. Tonight's confrontation just confirmed what we suspected. She's been working with police this whole time. Dr. Okafor's death was always suspicious. Too convenient, too perfectly timed. Miss Okafor approached us with her father's hidden research files and a plan to gather evidence from the inside." Detective Dlamini closed her notepad. "She volunteered to work undercover as domestic, help to document your wife's behavior, and gather evidence of ongoing fraud." Kwame looked at Amara with new understanding. "So everything, the job application, helping me discover the affair, it was all part of an investigation?" "Not everything," Amara said quietly, approaching them with a bandage across her forehead. "The affair investigation was real. I genuinely wanted to help you, because you're also a victim of your wife's manipulation. But you used me. I used your situation," she corrected. "There's a difference. Your wife destroyed my family and was about to destroy you. Stopping her helped us both." Detective Dlamini intervened. "Mr. Asante, we'll need you to provide access to any documents, bank records, or communications that might support the fraud case. Your cooperation could help put away some very dangerous people." As if on cue, Kwame's phone rang. Chief Asante's name appeared on the screen. "Papa," Kwame answered wearily. "I saw the news alerts." His father's voice was steel. "Are you safe?" "Yes. Thandiwe and her accomplice are in custody." "Good. I'm flying to Johannesburg tonight. We have much to discuss about protecting the family name and assets." Chief Asante paused. "And Kwame, that made you ask me about Amara Okafor. I've been making more inquiries. There are things about her you need to know before you trust her completely." Kwame looked at Amara, who was answering questions for another detective. What more could there be to discover about this woman who had turned his life upside down? What kind of things? The kind that might explain why someone would spend months planning such an elaborate revenge. Dr. Okafor wasn't just her father, Kwame. According to my sources, he was about to expose a medical fraud network that went far beyond your wife's case. His death protected millions of dollars in illegal operations. The line went dead, leaving Kwame staring at his phone. Around him, police continued documenting the crime scene while EMTs loaded Sipho into an ambulance. Apparently his tackle had resulted in a broken arm and concussion. Amara walked over, her movements careful. "Your father's worried about me, isn't he? Should he be?" Her answer chilled him. "Mr. Asante, your wife was just the beginning. The people who killed my father are still out there, still operating. And now that this investigation has gone public, they're going to come after everyone involved. Including me, especially you, because now you know their secrets too." As if to emphasize her point, Kwame's phone buzzed with an unknown number. "We know what happened tonight. End this investigation, or your family pays the price. You have 48 hours. The message included a photo that made Kwame's blood turn to ice. His father boarding his private jet in Lagos, taken just hours ago. They were being watched. They were being hunted. And Kwame was beginning to realize that marrying Thandiwe had pulled him into a conspiracy that reached far beyond one woman's greed. The real war was just beginning. Chief Emmanuel Asante's private jet touched down at Tambo International Airport at 3 a.m. But Kwame was already waiting in the VIP terminal with 3 armed security guards. The threatening message had changed everything. This was no longer about domestic betrayal or even fraud. Someone with serious resources was watching their family. "Papa!" Kwame embraced his father, noting the tension in the older man's shoulders. "How was the flight?" "Eventful," Chief Asante replied grimly, nodding toward a man in a dark suit who had accompanied him. "This is Colonel Adebayo, former Nigerian military intelligence. He'll be coordinating our security." The colonel was a mountain of a man with scars that spoke of real combat experience. "Mr. Asante, we have a problem. Your wife's fraud case was connected to a network of corrupt medical professionals across West and Southern Africa. Dr. Okafor was killed because he discovered they were selling fake fertility treatments to wealthy families and splitting the profits with criminal organizations." They spoke in low voices as they moved toward the armored convoy Chief Asante had arranged. "How big is this network?" "Millions of dollars annually. Fake clinics in Lagos, Cape Town, Nairobi, Accra. They target wealthy couples desperate for children, provide false hope and expensive treatments that often cause permanent damage." Colonel Adebayo opened a thick file. Dr. Okafor found evidence that some patients died from the experimental drugs. Kwame felt sick. Thandiwe was part of this. "Initially, she was just a patient who got greedy," his father explained as they settled into the bulletproof vehicle. "But when Dr. Okafor threatened to expose the network, she became an asset. Her lawsuit provided cover for his elimination." The convoy moved through Johannesburg's empty streets, past sleeping townships and glittering skyscrapers that marked the city's complex layers of wealth and poverty. Kwame stared out at the familiar landmarks, realizing how naive he'd been about the world his money operated in. "Where is Miss Okafor now?" Colonel Adebayo asked. "Police protective custody," Kwame replied, but she insisted on returning to the house tomorrow to retrieve evidence from Thandiwe's safe. "Absolutely not," Chief Asante said immediately. "If this network is as extensive as we believe, they'll have people inside the police force. Miss Okafor is walking into a trap." When they reached the mansion, it looked like a crime scene from a movie. Yellow tape, forensic photographers, detective cars filling the circular driveway. Detective Dlamini met them at the front door, her expression grim. "Mr. Asante, we have a situation," she began without preamble. "Your wife and her accomplice were released on bail 2 hours ago." Kwame felt the world tilt. "What? How is that possible?" "High-powered legal team. They claim the evidence was obtained illegally and that Miss Okafor was conducting vigilante justice." Detective Dlamini's frustration was obvious. "They'll be back in court next week, but for now, they're free." "Where are they?" "Unknown. They were picked up by a driver in an unmarked vehicle. No tracking, no surveillance." Colonel Adebayo stepped forward. "Detective, this case involves national security issues. We believe Mrs. Asante is connected to an international criminal network." "Then you better find evidence that will stick in court," Detective Dlamini replied. "Because right now all we have is the testimony of a woman who worked under false pretenses and some recordings that might not be admissible." Inside the mansion, the silence felt oppressive. Kwame walked through rooms where he'd shared meals with a woman planning his murder, slept beside someone counting down the days until his death. Every corner held new betrayals now that he understood the full scope of Thandiwe's deception. His phone rang. "Unknown number." "Answer it," Colonel Adebayo instructed, pointing to recording equipment his team had set up. "Hello, Kwame." Thandiwe's voice was calm, almost loving. "My darling husband. Where are you?" "Somewhere safe. Somewhere you'll never find me." She paused. "I want you to know that I never hated you. You were just convenient." "Convenient for what?" for accessing your family's resources, for providing cover while we built our operation, for being so trusting that you never questioned anything." Her laugh was hollow. "Did you really think a woman like me would marry you for love?" The words hit harder than he expected. "What do you want?" "I want you to stop this investigation. Fire that maid, drop the charges, and let us disappear. In exchange, I'll give you a clean divorce and spare your family's reputation. And if I refuse, then tomorrow morning, every newspaper in Africa will publish photos of you with various women from your business trips. Photos that Sipho's team doctored very convincingly. Your father's political connections, your business partnerships, your mother's memory, everything will be destroyed." Kwame looked at Colonel Adebayo, who was already tracing the call. The soldier held up 5 fingers, then 4, then 3. They needed to keep her talking. "You're bluffing," Kwame said. "Am I? Check your email." Kwame's laptop showed 3 new messages with photo attachments. The images were clearly manipulated, but expertly done, showing him in compromising positions with women he'd never met, in hotels he'd never visited. To the public, they would look completely real. 24 hours, Thandiwe continued. "After that, these go public, and we disappear forever. Oh, and Kwame, if anything happens to me or Sipho, these photos automatically release to every media outlet in sub-Saharan Africa. Insurance policy." The line went dead. Colonel Adebayo removed his headphones. "Call originated from Cape Town, but they're using multiple relay points. Could be anywhere." Chief Asante's voice was deadly quiet. "My son, your wife has declared war on our family, but she's forgotten something important." "What's that, Papa?" "The Asante family didn't build an empire by backing down from threats. We built it by eliminating them." As if summoned by his words, Kwame's laptop chimed with a new email. This one was from Amara, sent from an address he didn't recognize. "Meet me at the old Carlton Center in Johannesburg tomorrow at noon. Come alone. I have something that will end this war permanently. Trust me one more time." The Carlton Center, once Africa's tallest building, now a symbol of urban decay in downtown Johannesburg. It was the perfect place for a clandestine meeting or the perfect place for an ambush. Kwame stared at the message, knowing that meeting Amara could be the key to destroying his enemies or walking directly into their trap. But with less than 24 hours before his reputation was destroyed forever, he was running out of options. The Carlton Center rose from downtown Johannesburg like a concrete gravestone, 50 stories of abandoned dreams and broken promises. Once the pride of Africa, now it housed squatters, criminals, and people who needed to disappear from the world above. Kwame entered through a side entrance that Amara had specified, his heart hammering as he climbed the emergency stairs to the 32nd floor. Colonel Adebayo's team was positioned throughout the building, but he felt utterly alone in the echoing stairwell. The floor Amara had chosen was partially gutted, offering panoramic views of the city through broken windows. She stood silhouetted against the Johannesburg skyline, no longer the humble maid, but someone who belonged in boardrooms and courtrooms. "You came," she said without turning around. "I keep my promises," Kwame replied, approaching carefully. "Unlike some people. I never lied to you about what mattered." Amara turned to face him. The bandage across her forehead made her look like a warrior. "I told you I wanted justice for my father. I told you your wife was dangerous. Everything else was just method acting. Method acting that nearly got us both killed." Amara pulled out a laptop and set it on a makeshift table created from concrete blocks and plywood. "What I'm about to show you will destroy your wife's entire network, but it will also put both of us in more danger than we've ever faced." The laptop screen displayed a complex flowchart showing connections between medical clinics across 4 African countries, bank accounts in offshore havens, and names that Kwame recognized from high society. Politicians, business leaders, even some of his father's associates. My father wasn't just treating fertility issues, Amara explained. He stumbled onto the largest medical fraud operation in African history. Fake fertility clinics that promise miracle pregnancies to wealthy couples, charge hundreds of thousands for treatments, then provide experimental drugs that often cause more harm than help. How much money are we talking about? Conservatively, $50 million annually. But the real profit comes from the secondary operations, organ trafficking, illegal adoptions, human experimentation using desperate patients. Kwame stared at the screen, feeling nauseous. Thandiwe was involved in organ trafficking. Thandiwe was a recruiter. She identified wealthy couples in your social circle, gained their trust through charity events and social gatherings, then referred them to the network's clinics. Amara pulled up another file. Look at this list. Names scrolled across the screen. Couples Kwame knew personally. People who had attended his wedding, invested in his businesses, trusted his family's reputation. The Nakamuras, the Aching family, the Vander Merwes. He read aloud. All of these people. All victims. Some lost their life, savings to fake treatments. Others suffered permanent medical damage. 3 women died from complications. Amara's voice hardened. Your wife helped recruit every single one. Why didn't you go to police immediately with this evidence? Because the network has connections inside law enforcement, government, and the medical community. My father tried the legal route and died for it. Amara closed the laptop. The only way to destroy them completely is from the inside, with evidence they can't dispute or suppress. Kwame's phone buzzed. Another unknown number. Mr. Asante, you're 5 hours early for our appointment. Thandiwe's voice was mocking. I told you 24 hours. Plans changed, he replied, putting the call on speaker so Amara could hear. Yes, they have. You see, we know exactly where you are right now. The Carlton Center, 32nd floor, with your little maid friend. Thandiwe's laugh was cold. Did you really think we wouldn't be watching? Through the broken windows, Kwame could see movement in the building across the street. The reflection of rifle scopes caught the afternoon sun. Here's what's going to happen, Thandiwe continued. You're going to destroy whatever evidence Miss Okafor has shown you. Then you're both going to walk out of that building and drive to Cape Town, where you'll publicly announce that you were wrong about the fraud case and that Dr. Okafor was indeed guilty of malpractice. And if we refuse, then you'll become an example of what happens to people who interfere with our business. The same kind of example your maid's father became. Amara was already moving, pulling equipment from hidden compartments around the abandoned office. They're going to kill us anyway, she said quietly to Kwame. The moment we step outside, we're dead. Then what do you suggest? We finish what my father started. She handed him a device that looked like a modified tablet. This contains every piece of evidence about their network. Financial records, medical files, recorded confessions, even video footage from their clinics. Everything needed to destroy them completely. Where did you get all this? I've been building this case for 2 years. The maid job was just the final phase. Amara's smile was grim, but getting the evidence out requires a sacrifice. What kind of sacrifice? Before she could answer, the building's lights went out. Emergency lighting flickered on, casting everything in an eerie red glow. Heavy footsteps echoed in the stairwells. Multiple teams approaching from different floors. They're not waiting, Amara whispered. Time for Plan B. What's Plan B? She handed him a parachute pack from behind a concrete pillar. My father always said that sometimes the only way out is through. We're about to find out if he was right. Kwame stared at the parachute, Then, at the 50-story drop, outside the broken windows. "You're insane." "No," Amara replied, strapping on her own pack. "I'm desperate. And desperate people do desperate things." The footsteps were getting closer. Shouts echoed from the stairwells. Time was running out, and their only escape route was through the Johannesburg sky. But as Kwame struggled with the parachute straps, he realized that jumping might be the least dangerous part of what came next. The wind at 50 floors above Johannesburg was vicious, whipping through the broken windows as gunshots echoed in the hallway behind them. Amara had already clipped her tablet into a waterproof case attached to her parachute harness. "I've never done this before," Kwame shouted over the chaos. "Neither have I," Amara replied, checking her equipment one final time. "But my father always said fear makes cowards or heroes. Today we choose." The office door exploded inward as masked figures poured through, automatic weapons raised. In that split second, Kwame understood that hesitation meant death. He grabbed Amara's hand and jumped. The fall lasted forever and no time at all. Johannesburg spread below them like a circuit board of lights and shadows, the late afternoon sun casting everything in golden hues that would have been beautiful under different circumstances. Kwame's stomach dropped as they plummeted toward the city center, his parachute cord trembling in his grip. "Now!" Amara screamed, pulling her ripcord. Kwame followed suit, feeling the violent jerk as his parachute deployed. They drifted apart in the wind currents, landing roughly in different sections of Gandhi Square, their impact cushioned by the chaos of evening commuters who scattered in confusion. Kwame rolled behind a taxi rank, his ankles screaming in pain from the landing. Across the square, he could see Amara limping toward the Carlton Center Hotel, not the building they'd jumped from, but a functioning establishment that would provide crowd cover. His phone was miraculously intact. 3 missed calls from Colonel Adebayo, 2 from Detective Dlamini, and 17 news alerts about explosion at Carlton Center and Billionaire air missing. Explosion? Looking back, Kwame could see smoke billowing from several floors of the building they'd just escaped. Someone had tried to eliminate all evidence of their meeting by destroying the entire floor. "Kwame!" Amara's voice called from behind a newspaper vendor's stall. "This way!" They moved through the crowded square. 2 battered people among thousands of evening commuters heading home from work. In this part of Johannesburg, money meant nothing. Survival was the only currency that mattered. "Safe house," Amara panted as they walked. "There's a place in Hillbrow where we can regroup." Hillbrow! Kwame had never been to Johannesburg's most notorious neighborhood. "Isn't that dangerous?" "Everywhere is dangerous now," Amara replied. "But in Hillbrow, we can disappear." The taxi ride took them through parts of the city Kwame had only seen from highway overpasses. Street vendors sold everything from cell phone airtime to traditional medicine. Music pounded from every corner, and the energy was electric despite the underlying desperation. Amara led him to a rundown apartment building where the elevator was broken and the hallways smelled of cooking oil and disinfectant. On the 7th floor, she knocked on a door marked 7C, using a specific pattern. An elderly woman opened the door, tiny, fierce-eyed, wearing traditional Nigerian dress despite being thousands of miles from home. "Mama Ngozi," Amara said respectfully, "I need your help." The woman looked Kwame up and down with obvious disapproval. "You brought a rich boy to my house. This rich boy is the key to destroying the people who killed Dr. Okafor," Amara replied. Mama Ngozi's expression shifted immediately. She stepped aside to let them enter a small apartment that was immaculately clean and filled with the smell of jollof rice and fried plantains. "Dr. Okafor delivered my granddaughter," she explained to Kwame as she bandaged Amara's head wound. "When that woman destroyed his reputation, She destroyed a man who had saved dozens of lives in this community. Mama Ngozi runs an information network. Amara explained. Domestic workers, drivers, security guards, people who are invisible to the wealthy but see everything. And what we've seen, the elderly woman said, stirring a pot on the stove, is that your wife's friends have been very busy since this morning. She pulled out a smartphone that seemed incongruous in her weathered hands, scrolling through messages. 3 families connected to the medical fraud have left the country today. Bank accounts emptied, properties sold, children pulled from private schools. They're running, Kwame realized. Like cockroaches when the lights come on. Mama Ngozi agreed. But running to where? That's the question. Amara's tablet chimed with an encrypted message. Her face went pale as she read it. What is it? Kwame asked. My contact at the International Criminal Court in The Hague. The evidence I uploaded before we jumped has been received and verified. Arrest warrants are being prepared for 17 people across 4 countries. That's good news, right? It would be, except for this. She showed him the message. Thandiwe and Sipho were spotted boarding a private jet to Dubai 2 hours ago, along with Dr. Sarah Mbakini, the fertility specialist who was running the African branch of this operation. Kwame had heard that name before. Dr. Mbakini had treated several of their friends, always with miraculous success stories that now seemed sinister. Dubai doesn't have extradition treaties with most African countries, Mama Ngozi observed. Smart. Not smart enough, Amara said, her fingers flying across the tablet. Because I didn't just gather evidence about their African operations, I found their Dubai connections too. The screen filled with bank records, property documents, and photographs showing the network's Middle Eastern operations. Luxury fertility clinics in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, catering to wealthy families from around the world. They're not running to safety, Amara continued. They're running to their biggest operation. And now that we know where they are, we can finish them. Kwame completed her thought. But Mama Ngozi was shaking her head. Child, you've done enough. You've given authorities the evidence they need. Let the law handle this. The law failed my father, Amara replied firmly. Sometimes justice requires direct action. Kwame's phone rang again. This time it was Colonel Adebayo. Sir, we have a problem. Your father's jet was forced to make an emergency landing in Nigeria. Engine failure. But the mechanics are calling it sabotage. Chief Asante is safe, but they're sending a message. What message? That no one in your family is untouchable. As Kwame absorbed this news, Amara was already packing her equipment. There's a flight to Dubai leaving in 6 hours, she said. If we move fast, we can be there before they have time to disappear again. This is insane, Kwame protested. We barely survived today. Amara stopped packing and looked at him directly. Mr. Asante, they killed my father. They tried to kill us. Now they're threatening yours. When does it stop? When we stop them, Kwame realized. Exactly. But there's something I haven't told you yet. Something about why Thandiwe really married you, and why this network chose your family specifically. What are you talking about? Amara's next words hit him like a physical blow. Your father's business partners in Nigeria. Some of them are investors in the medical fraud network, which means your wife didn't just target you randomly. You were selected specifically to give them access to the Asante Empire. The betrayal kept growing deeper, more complex, more devastating. How many people in his life had been playing him from the beginning? But before Amara could explain further, Mama Ngozi's apartment door exploded off its hinges. Armed figures flooded into Mama Ngozi's tiny apartment, but they weren't the masked attackers from the Carlton Center. These wore the tactical gear of legitimate law enforcement, South African Special Forces, moving with military precision. Everyone down, hands visible. Colonel Adebayo appeared behind them, his expression grim. "Sir, we need to move. Now." "What's happening?" Kwame demanded as they were hustled toward the apartment's small balcony where a helicopter waited, its rotors whipping the evening air. "Your wife made a mistake," the colonel shouted over the noise. "She thought threatening your father would make you back down. Instead, it activated protocols that have been in place since the apartheid era." As they lifted off over Johannesburg's sprawling expanse, Kwame could see police vehicles converging on buildings throughout the city. Operation Copper Snake was in full effect, the kind of coordinated international law enforcement action that usually targeted terrorists or drug cartels. The evidence Miss Okafor provided triggered automatic sharing agreements between police forces in 12 countries. Colonel Adebayo explained through the helicopter's comm system. "Dubai police are already raiding the clinics where your wife and her associates are hiding." Amara's tablet showed live feeds from the raids. Luxury medical facilities being stormed, computers seized, people in handcuffs being led away. And there, in crystal-clear video, was Thandiwe being arrested in a Dubai hotel suite, her face a mask of rage and disbelief. "It's over," Kwame said, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders that he hadn't realized was there. "Not quite," Amara replied, scrolling through new data. "Look at this." The tablet displayed bank records showing massive transfers from Asante family accounts over the past 3 years. Kwame's own authorization codes had been used to move money to offshore accounts linked to the medical fraud network. "I never authorized these transfers," he said, studying the documents. "No, but someone with access to your personal information did." Amara highlighted specific transactions. Someone who knew your banking passwords, your security questions, your business patterns. The helicopter banked toward Tambo International Airport, where a private jet waited to take them back to Lagos. Below, the lights of Johannesburg spread like stars, beautiful and distant from their problems. "Thandiwe had help from inside your family's organization," Colonel Adebayo confirmed. "We're still identifying who, but the financial forensics suggest this conspiracy reaches the highest levels of your father's business empire." Kwame felt the familiar sensation of the ground shifting beneath him. Just when he thought he understood the scope of the betrayal, it expanded again. His phone rang. "Chief Emmanuel Asante. My son, are you safe?" "Yes, Papa. We're heading to Lagos now." "Good. There are things we must discuss in person. Things about our family that I should have told you years ago." His father's voice carried a weariness Kwame had never heard before. "This attack on us wasn't random, Kwame. It was planned revenge for actions I took decades ago." "What actions?" "Actions that were necessary to protect our family, but that created enemies who have been waiting for the right opportunity to strike back." The line crackled with interference, but Kwame could hear something else in the background. Multiple voices, official tones, the sound of documents being shuffled. "Papa, where are you?" "At the National Financial Investigation Agency office in Abuja." "Voluntarily," his father added quickly. "But son, when you return to Lagos, you need to be prepared for some difficult truths about how our family's wealth was really built." The call ended, leaving Kwame staring at the phone. Beside him, Amara was reviewing files on her tablet with the intensity of someone preparing for war. "What aren't you telling me?" he asked her. Amara looked up, her expression conflicted. "Your father is a good man who made bad choices to protect his family. My investigation uncovered some of those choices." "What kind of choices?" "The kind that put him in business with people like Dr. Mbakini 20 years ago. The kind that created the networks your wife later exploited." Amara closed the tablet. "Your father isn't guilty of fraud or murder, Kwame, but he is guilty of building relationships with people who were." The helicopter touched down on the airport tarmac as Kwame processed this revelation. His father, the man he'd idolized his entire life, had connections to the same criminal network that had destroyed both their lives. "So what happens now?" he asked. "Now we decide whether justice is more important than family loyalty," Amara replied, "because the evidence I have will clear my father's name and destroy this network completely. But it will also expose some uncomfortable truths about how the Asante Empire began." As they boarded the private jet to Lagos, Kwame realized that the most shocking secrets hadn't been revealed yet. The real test was just beginning, choosing between protecting his family's legacy and ensuring that justice was finally served. But what he didn't know was that Amara had one final secret, one that would change everything he thought he understood about love, loyalty, and revenge. The plane lifted off into the African sunset, carrying them toward a confrontation that would determine not just their futures, but the fate of countless victims whose voices had been silenced by money and power. 2 hours later, as Lagos's sprawling lights came into view, Amara turned to Kwame with tears in her eyes. "There's something else I need to tell you," she whispered. "Something about why I really took this job, and why destroying your wife was never actually about revenge." "What are you talking about?" "It was about saving the one person I've come to care about more than justice itself." "Who?" Amara's next words shattered everything. "You, Kwame. Because Dr. Chinedu Okafor wasn't just my father. He was also the doctor who delivered you 28 years ago. And in his final files, he discovered something about your birth that your parents never told you. Something that makes you the key to either destroying this network completely or becoming its next victim." The plane began its descent toward Lagos as Kwame stared at the woman who had turned his life upside down, realizing that everything he thought he knew about his own identity was about to change forever. Share this with someone who loves a good plot twist. Comment below. What do you think Kwame's birth secret is? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. The final revelations are coming next. What would you do if you discovered your entire life was built on lies?